Picture this. You walk into a Best Buy, a Costco, a Walmart, or a Target. You head toward the smart home aisle, and suddenly you're standing in front of a wall, literal of smart speakers, smart displays, hubs, and home assistants. Every single one of them is screaming at you from the packaging. Seamless control, AI-powered convenience, compatible with thousands of devices. The boxes look almost identical. The price tags are all over the place. And you're standing there thinking, okay, which one do I actually buy? Here's the thing most people don't realize until it's too late. You are not buying a speaker. You are buying an ecosystem. And that distinction is everything. A cheap entry device can quietly lock you into years of future purchases you didn't plan for. The marketing spends all its energy talking about voice quality and AI features, while the fine print hides the ecosystem limitations that are going to drive you absolutely crazy 6 months from now. And some of these assistants, they sound incredible in the store demo. You ask it a question, it answers perfectly, you're impressed. Then you get home, you try to connect 3 different brands of devices, you build out a couple of automations, and the whole thing becomes a headache you didn't sign up for. The assistant that sounds the smartest in the store is not always the one that actually runs your home the best. Some of these platforms are quietly losing support right now. Their ecosystems are shrinking. Some of them are loading up with ads and promotions that feel like a slow invasion of your living room. And then there are others that look complicated at first glance, but end up saving their owners an enormous amount of frustration over the long run. So today we are ranking 7 major home assistant brands you'll find online in majors. Retailers, from the worst ecosystem traps all the way to the ones that are actually worth building your smart home around. Let's get into it. Rank number 7, Samsung Bixby/SmartThings Voice. Kicking off the list at number 7, and you'll see this one built into a surprising number of Samsung TVs, appliances, and smart home products. We're talking about Samsung Bixby, paired with the SmartThings voice ecosystem. Now, to be fair to Samsung, if your entire house already revolves around Samsung products, Samsung fridge, Samsung washer, Samsung TV, Samsung phone, then Bixby actually works reasonably well within that bubble. The appliance integration is genuinely solid, and owners who are deep in the Samsung world generally appreciate that it's all connected without much extra effort. But here's the problem. The moment you step outside that bubble, Bixby starts showing its limits very quick. Voice recognition still trails the major competitors by a noticeable margin in 2026. If you've ever used Alexa or Google Assistant and then tried to have a natural conversation with Bixby, feel the gap. Natural language commands often need to be phrased in very specific ways, almost like you're talking to a search engine from a decade ago rather than a modern AI assistant. You have to learn how to talk to it rather than it learning how to understand you, which is kind of backwards. Owners generally appreciate the appliance integration, and that's a real and legitimate strength. But very few of them actually choose Bixby as their primary assistant. They tend to run it alongside something else, which tells you a lot about where it actually sits in the pecking. The verdict on Samsung Bixby: convenient when it comes free with your fridge. Hard to recommend as the brain of your entire home. But at least Samsung still appears committed to the platform. Next brand on this list has an even bigger uncertain problem. Rank number 6, Meta AI Smart Home Ecosystem. Remember when Meta wanted a place in your kitchen and your living room? That's exactly what we're dealing with at number 6. Meta's AI ambitions are genuinely impressive. The underlying artificial intelligence technology the company has been building is interesting. And in terms of raw conversational capability, there are moments where it genuinely surprises you. So this is not a case the technology is complete without me. The ambition is real. The problem is the smart foundation of that, and that foundation is shaky at best. Meta's hardware direction has changed in the past. You've been following the space. You know what we're talking about. Products that launch excitement and then quietly change. When a company can't hold a consistent hardware strategy, that creates a problem for buyers who are trying to make long-term investment. And then the trust question. Consumers who look at Meta as a potential long-term smart home investment consistently express hesitation about committing to platform. The AI capabilities get praised. The long-term smart home strategy gets that combination, interesting AI, shaky smart home strategy, is exactly why Meta lands at number 6. This isn't a brand that's going to already own one of their devices for a specific purpose, but as the central ecosystem build your home automation around. There are much safer bets further up this list. Rank number 5, Apple Siri/Home. Now we move into platforms that can actually run a household, but they still come with major caveats. And at number 5, Apple fans swear by this one. We're talking about Siri and the HomePod ecosystem. Honest truth about Apple in the smart home space. Within an Apple household, this thing is genuinely excellent. Microphone quality HomePod hardware is outstanding. Responsiveness is reliable. The software update track record is one of the best in the industry. Apple supports its devices for years, which is something a lot of competitors cannot honestly claim. And if privacy matters to you, Apple's reputation for handling your data more responsibly than the advertising-driven platform is a real meaning. You've already bought into Apple across your devices, iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple Watch, then adding HomePod. Leaning into the HomeKit ecosystem feels natural and works well. The integration is smooth, the experience is polished, and you're not going to run into the kinds of basic frustrations that drag down the lower-ranked options on this list. Apple users are often highly satisfied with their setup. Mixed-device households, people who have a combination of Apple and non-Apple products, or who want to choose from the broadest possible range of smart home hardware, frequently hit those limitations and find them frustrating. So the verdict is pretty clean. Amazing if your home speaks Apple, frustrating if it doesn't. The next platform is smarter in some ways, but it carries a different kind of risk. Rank number 4, Google Assistant/Nest. For years, Google Assistant was the assistant that everyone else compared themselves against. And honestly, in terms of raw conversational intelligence, it still belongs in that conversation. At number 4, this is Google Assistant and the Nest ecosystem. The question answering capabilities here are outstanding. If you ask Google Assistant a complex question, follow it up with a related question without restating the context, then ask a third follow-up. It handles that chain of conversation better than most. The contextual understanding is genuinely impressive, and for people who use their assistant heavily for information and queries rather than just device control, that matters a lot. The integration with Google services is also excellent if you live inside that world. Google Calendar, Google Maps, Gmail, YouTube, it all connects in a way that feels cohesive. And the Nest hardware lineup, particularly the thermostats and cameras, represents some of the more polished smart home hardware available. So why is it at number 4 rather than higher? The concern isn't really about what Google Assistant does today. It's about Google's track record with products over time. Google has a well-documented history of launching products that people come to rely on and then changing direction, altering features, or sunsetting things entirely. For users who have been in the smart home space for a few years, that history creates real hesitation about building an entire home automation setup around a platform that might look different in 3 years. Users consistently praise the intelligence while expressing concern about Google's shifting priorities. That pattern shows up repeatedly in honest conversations about this ecosystem, and it's a legitimate factor to the verdict, one of the smartest assistants you can buy if you're comfortable with Google's track record. Now, we've reached the point on this list where most people can safely buy, but the differences between the top 3 become much more interesting. Before we get into the top 3, let's talk about the mistake most shoppers make because it's worth pausing on this for a second. They compare speakers instead of ecosystems. They look at audio, they look at the physical design, they look at the price on the tag, and they miss the thing that actually determines whether they'll be happy with their purchase 2 years. Here's something the industry doesn't advertise loudly. Many entry-level smart home products are intentionally designed to pull buyers deeper to a specific ecosystem. That starter device at a low price point isn't just a product, it's an entry point into a platform. Once you've bought 3, 4, 5 compatible devices from within that ecosystem, switching becomes genuine pain. If this already saved you from a bad smart home purchase, hit subscribe because the next 3 might shock you. Rank number 3, Amazon Alexa. You'll see this one everywhere. Walmart shelves, holiday sales, Prime Day deals, gift guide. Amazon Alexa is genuinely ubiquitous, and there are very good reasons for that. For first-time smart home buyers, Alexa is the easiest recommendation to make. The device compatibility is massive. We're talking about one of the broadest ecosystems in the smart home space. If a device claims smart home compatibility, there's a very high probability it works with Alexa. That matters enormously when you're starting out. You don't want to spend time researching whether every single thing you buy is going nicely or assisted. The automation and routine library, you can build out genuinely useful automations without any technical background. Alexa, good night, and suddenly the lights dim, the thermostat adjusts, and the doors lock. Setting that up takes minutes, not hours. The setup process across the board is designed to be approachable for people who aren't deep into technology, and Amazon has put serious work into making that experience smooth. The frequent discounts that Amazon runs on Echo devices also create real value, especially for budget-conscious buyers. You can get into the ecosystem at a very reasonable price point and expand gradually without feeling like you're constantly spending a lot of money. Buyers consistently praise the compatibility and the ease of use. Those two qualities, broad compatibility and low friction, are exactly what a first-time smart home buyer needs. The honest weakness? Alexa has been gradually introducing more promotional content into the experience. Suggestions, offers, occasional audio ads that some users find intrusive. It's not a deal breaker for most people, but it's a real thing that existing Alexa users mention when they talk honestly about the platform. If that's a concern for you, it's worth knowing going in. The verdict? The safest recommendation for first-time smart home buyers. But if you're willing to invest a little more time up front, the next option unlocks capabilities that Alexa genuinely cannot touch. Rank number 2, Home Assistant. This is where the enthusiasts start smiling. And if you haven't heard of Home Assistant before, stay with me here, because this is one of the most important parts of this entire video. Home Assistant is an open source smart home platform, and the power it gives you over your smart home is in a completely different category from anything else on this list. We're talking about local control, meaning your automations and your device commands run on hardware in your home, not through a company's cloud server somewhere. That has huge implications for reliability. When a cloud server goes down, your automations keep running. When a company changes their terms of service, your setup isn't affected. When your internet goes out, your smart home keeps working. The integration library is enormous. Home Assistant works with an extraordinary range of devices, protocols, and platforms. Things that don't officially support each other can often be connected through Home Assistant in ways that would be possible on any of the closed ecosystem lower on this list. The customization depth genuinely remarkable. If you can imagine an automation, there is almost certainly a way to build. The long-term reliability track record is excellent, partly because it's not dependent on any single company's business decision. The community behind it is active and large, which means support, documentation, new integrations keep proving consistent. Power users describe it frequently as the smartest investment they've made in home automation, not just because of what it does today, but because of how well it holds up over time compared to locked ecosystem. Now, the honest caveat, choosing a smart home ecosystem is like choosing a smartphone operating system. You can switch later, but it's far more painful than most people expect. And Home Assistant does have a steeper learning curve than Alexa. The initial setup requires more engagement. You're going to spend time learning how the system works rather than just plugging something in and asking it questions. For some people, that's genuinely fun. For others, it's a barrier. But once it's set up, the experience of having a smart home that runs exactly the way you designed it, that doesn't depend on a company cloud, and that you actually understand and control, that's a level of satisfaction that closed systems have a hard time matching. The verdict, easiest option, are most capable. And the number one choice on this list wins because it takes everything that makes Home Assistant power and adds a layer of future-proof that makes a strong long-term strategy available in 26. Home Assistant plus the Matter ecosystem. This isn't just a product, it's a strategy. Home Assistant combined with Matter Thread Standard represents the best balance of compatibility, reliability, and value. Build a smart home right understand requires stepping back about where the smart industry is heading, not just where it is today. Matter is an open connectivity standard backed by virtually every major player in the smart home space. Apple, Google, Amazon, Samsung, and many others all support it. What Matter does is expand cross-brand compatibility in a meaningful way. Devices from different manufacturers that support Matter can communicate with each other reliably without you needing to rely on any single company's ecosystem to be the bridge. That fundamentally changes the smart home equation. Thread works alongside Matter to improve responsiveness and reliability. It's a low-power wireless protocol that creates a mesh network in your home, meaning your devices communicate more directly and more reliably than they do over traditional Wi-Fi, older wireless standards. The result is a smart home that responds faster and holds up better under real-world conditions. Local processing, which is central to how Home Assistant operates, means your smart home doesn't have an outage every time someone's cloud server has a bad day. The number of times Alexa or Google users have logged onto forums to ask, "Is anyone else's smart home broken right now?" is genuinely striking. Local processing dramatically reduces those moments, And then there's vendor independence, which might be the most underappreciated benefit of this entire setup. Building a smart home entirely around one company can become a house of cards if that company suddenly changes direction. We've seen it happen. Products get discontinued, features get removed, ecosystems get merged or shut down. When your smart home is built on open standards and local control, you are insulated from those changes in a way that closed ecosystem buyers simply are not. Advanced users who have moved to this setup consistently report higher long-term satisfaction who are locked into single-brand ecosystem. The initial effort real. There's no pretending this is as effortless as buying an Echo and asking it to play music, but the payoff for 2, 3, 5 years is substantial. The verdict? The closest thing to a future-proof smart home available in 2026. Let's bring this all together, because there's a framework here that's worth holding on to every time you walk into that smart home aisle. We covered 3 tiers today. The first tier is the traps: Samsung Bixby, and the Meta AI ecosystem. These platforms struggle because their ecosystem limitations genuinely outweigh their strengths. Bixby is fine within a pure Samsung household, but weak outside of it. Meta's AI is interesting, but the smart home foundation isn't there yet to justify building around it. If you're looking at these two, keep your expectations carefully calibrated. The second tier is the middle ground: Apple Siri with HomePod and Google Assistant with Nest. These are genuinely good products with real strength. They're not bad choices, but they both come with meaningful restrictions that depend heavily on what devices you already and what your priorities are. Apple users love Apple's ecosystem. People in mixed device households find its limits frustrating. Google Assistant is impressive, but the platform uncertain. Know your situation before committing. The third tier is where the winners live. Alexa, Home Assistant, and Home Assistant combined matter. These three offer the strongest combination: compatibility, reliability, long-term value. Alexa for accessibility, and Home Assistant for power and control. Home Assistant plus Matter for the best long-term strategy. The smart home market isn't bad. Buying the wrong ecosystem is. Drop the smart home assistant or ecosystem you're currently considering in comments right now, and I will tell you whether it's a safe buy or a trap. I read every comment, and I'll give you a straight answer. And if you want more honest rankings that actually cut through the marketing noise instead of repeating it back to you, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because we've got a lot more of these coming. See you in the next one.